Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Exploring the Lord of the Rings. Tonight is a very special session in a couple ways. First off, this is the 9th anniversary of the beginning of this broadcast. We did our first session on Tolkien's birthday, January 3rd, 2017. This is our anniversary session. It was 9 years ago that we had our first class. So we've now been discussing the Lord of the Rings more or less weekly for 9 years, and have gotten extremely deep into the text, as I think you will agree. We are now all the way up to the Bridge of Khazad-dum, which of course makes it that's the other reason why this is such a special class, is that we have come to one of the highlight passages, the confrontation between Gandalf and the Balrog, and in particular, Gandalf's speech on the Bridge of Khazad-dum. And that is what we are up to. I did not actually plan that for this celebratory occasion, but it just happened that way, and I'm pretty excited for that particular coincidence. Yes, as JJ points out, a couple more years and we'll have discussed this longer than Tolkien took to write it. Yes, which is a pretty low bar, all things considered, JJ. But yes, indeed. Yeah. Oh, awesome. Balrog's beard was just saying that you started reading the Fellowship to your son this week. That is such a special thing. I am also curious to see how long it'll take you to get to the bridge. I'm guessing it will be less than 9 years. Like your child will probably not be in high school by the time before you get to the Bridge of Khazad-dum, I'm guessing. But anyway, we're excellent. Bima, your granddaughter is reading it now, right? I hope this is not like the child of one of those infants who was born in the early years of the podcast. But anyway, no, that's great. Yeah, awesome. I'd say, Bearded Elf, I agree. Planning a special passage for anniversaries is a fabulous idea, and this is certainly a wonderful coincidence. So I am delighted that it worked out that way. Before we get into our special passage today, I have a few announcements and reminders that I wanted to give folks. First of all, coming up next in Signum Events World, we are approaching one of my favorite moots of the year. It is almost Osmoot time down in Australia, down in Canberra, Australia. On the last weekend of January, we will be having Osmoot. And as Dizzy says, all are welcome down in Oz. Anyone who wants to come down to Canberra and join me in seeing lovely Canberra for the first time that would be absolutely delightful. It is not too late to book flights. In fact, as Aranos points out, all of our Australian attendees are extremely welcoming to anybody who wants to come down. However, if you cannot join us, then you could definitely sign up to attend remotely, which we have the possibility of doing for all of our regional moots. And so you will get access to 3 days worth of really, really fun content. Some of which you may watch live. Some of it will be at awkward time zones for some people, I think, for which I know the Australians feel very small amounts of remorse. as this is the session that is the event that is held entirely within their time zone. However, recordings are available for everybody who attends remotely, so you won't miss anything if you attend Osmoot remotely. The second thing I wanted to remind folks of is that we are in January now, which is the last month in which you can register for Mythmoot on our early bird pricing. So Mythmoot is Signum University's biggest conference of the year. It is a 4-day event, really, down in Leesburg, Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C., right near Dulles Airport. Mythmoot is our annual retreat, where we go to the National Conference Center, which is a retreat center, and we enter into the peace of the environs of the NCC. We lose ourselves quite literally within the enormous concrete building and just spend a delightful sort of 4-day oasis of time surrounded by wonderful people who share so many of your interests and passions. Mythmoot is a wonderful place to come to find your people and spend a whole weekend with them. Spend evenings around the fire pits, having wonderful discussions until just about dawn, if you are able to stay up until just about dawn. Sometimes quite until dawn, though I try not to do that too many times. So that is the third week of June is Mythmoot. Mythmoot registration we were able to reduce the Mythmoot registration price this year, which I was very excited about. And as I say, now you're able to get that on our early bird pricing as well. Let me show you a little bit more details. This is BlackBerry, blackberry.signumuniversity.org. It's our wonderful registration system for space and our events and other things. So if you look, here's the registration form for Osmoot. And if you scroll down, because these are listed chronologically, hang on, no, it's not. We've got to go to Mythmoot here, which is separately. There's Mythmoot 3 over here under our events. June 25th through 28th are our dates in the National Conference Center. The early bird pricing, it's $395 for the full conference. And then you can also get your lodging here too. So you get the registration, you rent your room in the NCC, you get full room and board with your registration. There's the registration for the conference. There's a separate registration for the lodging. You don't have to stay at the NCC. You could stay elsewhere at a local hotel if you wanted to. Though staying at the NCC is part of the fun, just kind of being there with us the whole weekend. But even with your registration, you still also get all of your meals for the whole time. So they've got a wonderful dining area at the NCC. Really enjoy the food there, and you get food and snacks and beverages and everything all day long at Mythmoot. So anyway. All of this is, as I say, the early bird pricing ends on January 31st. So this month is the last chance to sign up for early bird registration pricing. You just go here to start your registration, and you see there's the options to register. There's the separate options for your lodging down here. You don't have to do both at once. You can do registration now and lodging later. That's one way you can kind of spread it out a little bit if you want to. Anyway, so Mythmoot 13 early bird pricing is my second reminder. The third thing I wanted to tell you about, because this is a brand new thing that we're doing in our space program. It's actually a collaborative thing between our space program and the Signum University Press. And this is a series of space classes called Signum Classics. And this is being taught, speaking of Australia, by Julian Barr from Brisbane, Australia, whom I got to know down at the first ever Osmoot. Julian is teaching this series of space classes called the Signum Classics series, where they're going to be reading through classic fantasy and horror stories. They're starting with Dracula. They're going to be doing The Princess and the Goblin, Fantasties. They're going to do Lilith, The House of the Wolfings, The Roots of the Mountains. Like these classic. These are some of the stories that had a deep influence on Lewis and Tolkien both. I'd say, Jackie, I knew you'd be kind of excited about this series, right? They're going to come to Frankenstein and stuff. But here's the really cool thing. In addition to doing these series of space modules, and our space modules are little 1 month classes. They meet twice a week, so it's 8 sessions in a month. Not only are they doing the series of space modules, but the Signum Press is also going to be producing e-text editions of these books that are custom made for the classes. So they're going to be releasing an edition of Dracula, the Signum Classics edition of Dracula, with like Julian's notes and stuff, like basically as a companion volume to the class. It's really fun. Yeah, see, Ambrosius Balrogianus was saying nobody ever talks about George MacDonald's Lilith. Well, there we go, right? So yes, there it is. In June, Julian is going to be talking about Lilith for an entire month. So there we are. So we're, as I say, this is a sort of a crossover between space and the press, working together. Julian also works with us at the Signum University Press. So anyway, this is a really fun series, just a really fun example of things. And there's a direct link if you want to come to this page and find out more about this and sign up for Dracula, which is the first module that's happening here in March. Sarah Brown from our Signum faculty is going to be joining Julian. She's going to give a guest lecture in this series as well. So Julian will be teaching the class, and Sarah Brown is going to be doing a guest lecture. Anyway, it's going to be great. So if you want to sign up, you can come here and sign. You can add the course to your wish list. You can sign up for the module. Oh, that's right. I can't sign up for the module on this account because I don't have any tokens. So I got to buy a token and then I can enroll in the module. And then I'll be all set to go. Anyway, so the Signum Classics initiative, this was an idea by Julian Barr. Really wanted to go through some of these classic texts, which too few people have read and talked about, as several of our people were commenting on. Anyway, so there we go. Yes, Bjorning, it is always good to hear from Sarah Brown. She is such a wonderful teacher. Sarah teaches many classes in our space program, and she's of course also the director of our graduate program. Yeah, there's a lot of wonderful teaching content from Sarah Brown in our space program. Okay, so check that out. There is, as I said, there's a link that I think might have, there we go. Druid's Fire dropped that link in the chat, so you can see the link to the Signum Classics series. And there you go. Just one of the really exciting things happening in our space program here, coming up now. All right. By the way, the space classes, these space classes are all, this is not on our graduate program. This is in our space program. So these are space classes, our space modules, are all classes that are for fun. There's no homework. I mean, you should read the book, right? That's kind of the point. But really, it's just an opportunity to get together with a wonderful and enthusiastic teacher like Julian and Sarah, and talk about wonderful books. You don't have to write papers. You don't have to worry about getting graded. It is all the fun parts of learning. So, all right, let us get to the text, shall we? So I want to go back to the last paragraph, not because I'm going backwards, but I want to build up to it. I don't just want to start in with the quotation. I want to make sure we're getting the context here a little bit. And then we'll get to Gandalf's words. The Balrog reached the bridge. Gandalf stood in the middle of the span, leaning on the staff in his left hand, but in his other hand Glamdring gleamed, cold and white. His enemy halted again, facing him, and the shadow about it reached out like two vast wings. It raised the whip, and the thongs whined and cracked. Fire came from its nostrils, but Gandalf stood firm. "You cannot pass," he said. The orc stood still, and a dead silence fell. "I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor. You cannot pass. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun. Go back to the shadow. You cannot pass." The Balrog made no answer. I love that line. The Balrog made no answer. It isn't just that he doesn't talk. The narrator draws our attention to the fact that the Balrog doesn't talk, right? Okay. First, one thing that struck me in reading this through, there is, of course, one of the things that I'm thinking about first is the sound structure of this paragraph, right? And the first thing that struck me is that this speech is less about the pattern of sounds and more about repeated words, right? The repeated sentence, "You cannot pass," which we get 3 times, right? We get repeated words and phrases like the corresponding flame of Anor and flame of Udun, right? Which are sort of obviously and closely parallel. We get a really simple syntactic structure, right? This is just a bunch of very simple sentences with no subordinating clauses at all. 2 appositives, right? I'm a servant of the secret fire, comma, wielder of the flame of Anor, and the dark fire will not avail you, comma, flame of Udun, right? Those are both wielder of the flame of Anor and flame of Udun are both appositives. That is to say, when you repeat a thing to name, to name it, right? So if you say my son, Matthias, it's unnecessary. You got the 2 nouns which mean the same thing, right? So you're just kind of repeating a parallel noun in order to give more information about the original noun, right? That's what an appositive is. So again, it's really simple. Those appositives, the one to name himself and the other to name the Balrog, are the only 2 commas even within the statements that Gandalf makes. I really like the simplicity. Go back to the shadow. That's it. Right? Notice that also, and another thing to notice, that's the only imperative in the entire paragraph. Right? This paragraph, this is a paragraph of defiance, right? And you might guess that if you were making a speech of someone who is defying a great dark power, that they might give some commands, right? There might be imperatives involved, right? But there's only the one. Go back to the shadow. Gandalf's primary message is delightfully, even deliciously, in the indicative mood. You cannot pass, period. I'm sorry. You cannot pass. That's the fact, right? Gandalf's just laying it out for him, right? I am going to give an indicative statement of fact. You cannot pass. Just have to, I'm here to inform you, to transmit that piece of information. You cannot. And again, one of the things that is, of course, we're all familiar, right, with Ian McKellen's performance of this speech. And it works. Like, I'm not here to, knock Ian McKellen's performance of this speech. However, okay, hang on, Lupita. I did see it. I'm coming back to it. The note that you've been saving for years. This is important, right? I know there are some people who have joked about leaving observations that they're waiting to make in their wills to their heirs for passages in The Return of the King or something like that. So, Lupita, I don't want to miss this. Okay. She says, I love the fact that Tolkien abandoned the earlier versions where Gandalf was a master of the white flame. Yes. And that in making him a servant, he isn't diminishing Gandalf, but instead being a servant of the secret flame implies a greater power and a bigger purpose. Totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah. And we'll come back to the, the white fire, later. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll come back to that in a little bit. But just so again, thinking about Ian McKellen again. Think about his delivery of that last you, and he says shall not, right, instead of cannot. You shall not pass, right, and so, and it's awesome. Like, it's very dramatic, it's very moving. It's great. But that's not how Gandalf talks in the book. And I think it's again, there's not even an exclamation point. You cannot pass, period. Facts. You cannot pass. There is an exclamation point after go back to the shadow. Like, the one imperative gets an exclamation point, right? He's emphatic about the command. But the thing that he says 3 times is just a statement of fact. And I love the indicative nature of it. I love the periods instead of exclamation points. And boy, talk about things which, if I had been writing this passage, I would have failed to have the restraint to do. Like, I'd be putting exclamation points all over the place. I totally would. I know this for a fact. Yeah. So, he just, yeah. And you're right, Jackie. Tolkien does not use exclamation points that much. Now, we're going to get one. You cannot pass with an exclamation point later, right? As you can see at the bottom of the slide. It's gonna happen, but it's not gonna happen yet. And it doesn't happen here. It's funny because if you didn't know better, if you just came across this passage out of context, you wouldn't there are few internal cues that would tell. Again, if somebody just gave you this paragraph out of nowhere, like on a slip of paper, and you'd never read the book, you wouldn't realize that this was such a dramatic moment. Gandalf sounds so matter of fact. And I think that is, it's like, somebody speaking with calm confidence is often much more intimidating than somebody who yells, right? It's kind of like that, on one really simple level, right? There's that going on. Yes, Eddie Pertle, I agree. He's resolute rather than angry. Yes. Yeah. I like the idea of Gandalf speaking in a library voice, right? Gandalf not even raising his voice. "You cannot pass," he said. Yes. And the statement, what he is giving an indicative statement about, right? What he is speaking the indicative mood about is not himself, right? He's not talking about stopping the Balrog, right? He's not saying, "I will keep you from passing. I will stop you." He's not making a statement about himself. He's making a statement about the Balrog, about the Balrog's inability. You can't. I mean, I get it that you want to. You can't. It's almost like Gandalf is like, "It's out of my hands." Yes, he's saying the Balrog is incapable of passing. Yes. Now, again, there's more, and of course, we're getting to the rest of his statements, the things that he says before and after, and in the middle, right, of these. But I wanted to begin, because this is the dominant feature of this passage, is the repetitions, right? And to Juice Man, I completely agree with you that there is a clear structure. You cannot pass, sentence. You cannot pass, sentence. Command, sentence, right? So there's the statement, "You cannot pass." Sentence about himself. The sentence again. The statement again. Then 2 sentences, one an observation, possibly a piece of advice even to the Balrog, then the command, and then the statement again, right? So he talks about himself, then he talks about the Balrog on either side of, and "you cannot pass" is the beginning, "you cannot pass" is the end, and "you cannot pass" is the pivot point in the middle, right? So it's a really carefully structured paragraph, right? Now, I said that the dominant sense, like the dominant effect of this paragraph, is the repetition, not just of sentences, but of words and parallel phrases like "flame of honor" and "flame of Udun." But there is some, right? Notice all the sibilants. I can't help but notice all the sibilants. Not just "pass," right? But "silence fell. I am a servant of the secret fire." Then "pass" again, right? So especially "silence, servant, secret." And the orc stood still. Yes, the orc stood still, and a dead silence fell. I am a servant of the secret fire. Those first 2 sentences, there's a whole lot of sibilants going on there. So that's the primary trend. I don't see him doing a bunch of other alliteration. I mean, you could say flame, and fire. Yes. But again, to me, that's more about repetitions than about, sort of shaping the soundscape, right? Secret fire, dark fire, flame of honor, flame of Udun. Again, that's the parallelism that we're seeing between his sentence about himself and the sentence about the Balrog. But yeah, the opening, we do get that underlying repetition of the sibilance, which really begins and ends with pass. You cannot pass, he said. The orc stood still. The orc stood still, and a dead silence fell. I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of honor. You cannot pass. Jackie, that is a really interesting observation, that the S's make shouting seem unlikely. Yeah. As everybody knows, sibilants are much more audible in library, right? You can always hear the hissing of other people's sibilants, right? When somebody is whispering in a library. It adds to the sense of stillness. Stood still, dead silence. We're told in the one narrator's intervention sentence, right? In all of this. Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not sure what to do with that, other than the way in which it emphasizes and echoes the stood still in silence. But then it kicks in with the servant of the secret fire as well. So it's part of Gandalf's own, that sibilance segues into Gandalf's own talking about himself. Now, yes, Oh Little Bridge of Khazad-dum. I really do love that screen name, Luke. Yes, Luke is pointing out that we saw Boromir's horn bring about a temporary halt and silence just on the last slide, and the Balrog shrugged it off, but did appear to have to do something. Yes, agreed. Gandalf speaking here brings the orcs to a stop. The orcs are having a difficult time making progress across this room, aren't they? It brings the orcs to a stop and silence breaks out. Should we see this as Gandalf doing something in return? Yes, I do think so. It is like red light, green light for the orcs. Gandalf flashes up the red light again. Yes, exactly. But absolutely, Luke. Why do the orcs stand still? Like out of respect, for Gandalf speaking in librarian voice? No, I don't think so. Right. This is power. I agree. And sorry, I've already forgotten who just posted this, but, it is exactly, you were remembering ahead. You will recall that this is exactly the tone that Gandalf uses with Saruman, right? Your staff is broken. The moment when Gandalf asserts his power over Saruman and breaks Saruman's power, he uses the exact same kind of sentence in the indicative mood, right? It's not a command. It's no exclamation, but it's, your staff is broken. FYI. Saruman, right? I'm sending you the memo right now, right? It is obvious that in the moment that Gandalf says your staff is broken, power is being exerted, and I think the power is being exerted here. I think that's why we get the interruption from the narrator. The orc stood still and a dead silence fell, to show that Gandalf. This is not just Gandalf talking, right? Gandalf is not just posturing on the Bridge of Khazad-dum. He is speaking and he is exerting his will. But his power is being, like, the power that is being brought to bear here is being brought to bear, again, not in... This is exactly the reason. It's the fact that this speech is Gandalf using I mean, if you want an example of Gandalf using magic, you get no better example than this. Like I don't think there's any moment in the entire Lord of the Rings in which you can say more clearly and certainly that Gandalf is using magic. Even his fireworks, you can argue that there's chemistry involved, right? Potentially. But there is power that is being exerted here through his words. And again, I think that the narrator, does emphasize this so that we get that, right? Just as we got it with Boromir's horn and the orcs and Balrog coming to a stop when Boromir blew his horn, so too now. Now that Balrog was already standing still, so he doesn't screech to a halt this time, like he did with the horn. But the orcs do, and they fall silent. Yeah. Oh, Frumius Mujum, there are others. I'm not saying this is the only one, but again, I just, I think this is because we get two cues. One there in this paragraph, the orc stood still and a dead silence fell. And the second one right at the beginning of the next paragraph, the fire in it seemed to die, but the darkness grew. Right? So there in that sentence, we see both the effect of Gandalf's power and the rallying of the Balrog's power. Yes, Flame Wielder, you're right. Sounds are very important in this scene. Yes, I agree. Okay. Let's look at Gandalf's sentence. I know you guys have been waiting to talk about this sentence like literally for years. I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor, he says. Now, as Lupita was just excellently pointing out earlier on, this makes a very interesting change from the early draft of this chapter. Not just because it's not Saruman that he's facing. It was, in fact, Saruman in the very, very first impulse that he had there. That was in the plot notes, basically, not even really the first draft. By the time he started drafting it, he had already changed it to this. But in the first draft, his first version of Gandalf's confrontation with the Balrog, Gandalf calls himself in this spot. He calls himself, as Lupita was recalling, the Master of the White Fire, and he talks about the Balrog's red fire, and he is specifically opposing his white fire to the Balrog's red fire, and he speaks as if his white fire is like some kind of antidote to the red fire that the Balrog has. I made this joke when we were talking, when we discussed the Treason of Isengard, which is where you can find the original passage, the early draft passage, which is volume 7 of the History of Middle-earth. The joke that I made, and I still think of this every time I read that, is that it sounds almost like a Pokemon match, where like the Balrog plays the red fire card, and then Gandalf is like, but I counter your red fire with my white fire, and the Balrog's like, no, I have no defense against white fire. Like, that's the to me the kind of sense that we get of the opposition between the two of them in the original draft. That is to say, in Tolkien's first version of this, he seemed definitely to be thinking in terms of the magic of the Balrog versus the magic of Gandalf, and Gandalf's magic being of a particular kind, and the fact that it's the white fire, I think is clearly, we can see in that, right, an indication that that it's associated with goodness and all that sort of thing, right? His white fire against the shadow and the red fire. But still, it seems to be mostly Gandalf's power. And Lupita, I particularly like your point about it's not just that Tolkien dropped the white fire thing out of Gandalf's speech about himself. It is that the more important thing, as Lupita pointed out, is that instead of Gandalf calling himself a master, Gandalf calls himself a servant. And that is a very different thing. So first of all, Asphalot's bells, you just brought up Gandalf's word of command. That speech, that earlier speech, when Gandalf was talking about his first confrontation with the Balrog, with his shutting spell that he puts on the door, and then his having to utter a word of command. I mean, again, that's it is very much of that kind of like, I'm casting spells, I'm using my power, right? Again, that was the way, that seemed to be the way in which Tolkien was thinking about this confrontation at first. But the revision, I think, is extremely significant. And again, I think, Lupita, you put your finger right on the important element. Replacing the white fire with the flame of honor. We'll come back in a second to some of the significances of that. But I think that change, that development of this speech is less significant than the one, Lupita, that you pointed out. The shift from I am the master to I am a servant. Gandalf is clearly a representative here. And I saw several of you asking before. I saw several of you asking before, is this Gandalf's power, in fact, that's being exerted? Or is Gandalf merely a conduit or a medium of a larger, a delegated power? Is this the power of Iluvatar working here, or is this his own power that's working here? And I don't know. That's always I always need to say that. I don't know the answer to that question. But I think in this case, very importantly, it's defining that boundary, I think, is very purposefully impossible when we're reading. There are many things, there will be many times when stuff happens and we don't know for sure who caused it, like where it's hard to point to boundaries and say this is definitely this is definitely his power. Is it the power of the person? Is it the power of like the Valar, like Elbereth seems to hear? I have argued, right, when Frodo drops the E-bomb that, Elbereth responds. And this is one of the reasons why the Witch King runs away. So like, when is it the character? When is it like the Valar intervening? When is it Iluvatar intervening? It's Tolkien does not, I think, even want us to feel that we are able to draw those lines really clearly. And I think that that's one of the points. I think that's one of the things that we can see most clearly. Gandalf here is not. I think this also is reflected in the entire structure of this. The whole librarian voice, indicative statement approach that Gandalf is taking here in this speech. itself reflects the fact that he is not, remember I was comparing the Balrog with its shadow spreading out like wings. I was comparing that to like a cobra or like a frilled lizard or something, like some animal doing a threat gesture, right? Making itself look bigger and more scary. That there's an element of that, like part of what it was doing at the very least. I mean, it was doing more also, presumably, but at the very least, what it was doing is trying to scare and intimidate Gandalf. Its power and its fear, right? Reaching out to him. But Gandalf doesn't respond that way. Gandalf doesn't thump his own chest and expand himself, even verbally. I am a servant, not the servant. Somebody brought this up before. Is that right? Does Ian McKellen say the servant of the Secret Fire? If so, I have objections. But he says A. Okay, that's good. That's good. It should not be V, right? I am a servant of the Secret Fire. He's not just saying he's not the master. He is a servant. There's a bunch of servants. I'm one of them, right? Not only am I not all that, I'm not even claiming to be all that in the hierarchy of the servants, right? So it's his response, his sentence about himself begins very remarkably with humility. And I think that that's really important to note. Now, as for the rest of the things that he says to himself, I want to do two things, and I want to do them separately. And I want to try to keep them separate in our minds. First, I want to emphasize, I want to read this like it's back in the day. I want to read this like it's 1954. The Fellowship of the Ring came out, right? And this also, as Jackie, I think you were saying before, Frodo also. If we're hearing this as Frodo, oh no, Valoria, it was you who said that, I think. If we're in Frodo's position, we've been in Frodo point of view for pretty much this whole situation, right? Does Frodo know what the Secret Fire is? So I changed my mind. There are not two ways. There are three different ways I want to read this. First, you're a reader in 1954. Some of you remember being a reader in 1954. I don't, alas. I did not have that experience. I did have the experience of reading the Lord of the Rings years before I knew that the Silmarillion existed. So I got a sort of version of that experience. But in any case, in 1954, I am a servant of the Secret Fire. We have no clear indicator of what that means at all. Wielder of the Flame of Honor. Now, okay, we have a little context from this. That is, we were been told already, if we were paying careful attention, we will have remembered, didn't Elrond talk about Minas Anor and Minas Ithil when he was doing his summary of the history of Gondor thing? Yeah, I thought it was mentioned. I thought it was mentioned in the Council of Elrond. So we've seen the word before. And if we are the kind of reader that Tolkien really hopes will be, we might even have figured that out. What Minas Anor meant, Minas Ithil and Minas Anor, because Elrond gives the translations, the Tower of the Sun and the Tower of the Moon. So yeah, it's there. It's there. And he's given the translation. So if we were very attentive, we will know that Anor is the sun. Okay. What does that mean? He's a wielder of the flame of the sun? What on earth is the flame of the sun? And in what sense is Gandalf wielding it? Remember, this is the replacement in the final version of the white fire thing, where Gandalf was just describing like his own power. Like, I'm the master of the white fire. That's what I got, right? I'm playing the white fire card. And now, wielder of the flame of Anor. Okay. Yeah, Captain Mo, I think that's exactly the kind of association. Orange Wizard is thinking in similar ways. The darkness and the shadow of the Balrog is clearly, an important thing about it, right? And so therefore, like, he is the wielder of the flame of the sun. He's underground. He's in, Khazad-dum. This is Durin's bane, right? He is in the domain, the dark underground domain. True, he's near the edges of it, but still, he is within the dark underground dominion of this dark, shadowy, fiery creature, right? So yes, if we do successfully recall that Anor means sun, which I'm sure some very small percentage of readers in 1954 in fact remembered, then we may pick up on the fact, generally speaking, that he seems to be talking, like associating himself with daylight and the sun, driving away the darkness and the night. So you've got Balrog night, Gandalf day kind of stuff, right? Flame Wielder, I totally agree. Quite a bit has happened since that was dropped. Yes. If you don't remember offhand, A, that the word Anor was used in the Council of Elrond, and B, that it means sun, when you get here, you can be forgiven, because that is that is not. Valori points out that in 1954, most people didn't have TVs yet, so they had more free time. maybe. Yes. And yes, Nordo Sapiens, it is extremely easy to mix up Anor and Arnor. Absolutely. Yes. Okay. So again, it's 1954. What do we get? Now let's say, so if we are an exemplary reader in 1954 and do in fact remember that Anor means sun, we might get that day, night, light, darkness concept. Though still, like, again, in what sense he's the wielder of the sun's fire is not real clear, right? Gandalf has not shown much evidence of shining like the sun at any point in the narrative, right? He can make a light in the darkness, but it's like a little will-o'-the-wisp light, right? He can make it shine real bright, like he turned it up, when he turned it up to 11 in the 20th hall, the 21st hall, right? Briefly. But yeah. Anyway, so yes. So even with figuring out what Anor is, in 1954, this is barely going to help us understand what Gandalf is saying about himself here. And we have no clue. We have no key whatsoever to what the secret fire is that Gandalf is a servant of. Now, so what do we get? Right, Kursimus? It's secret, obviously, right? Yeah. Mad Men on YouTube says, I thought Flame of Honor was a reference to Glamdring. You know, I actually think I have vague memories of making the same kind of association. I was like, oh, maybe it's because I know that, you know, Glamdring glows and stuff. I remembered him getting it in The Hobbit, and I didn't remember. I did not remember. I was not one of the excellent readers who immediately recalled that Honor means sun. But flame, I'm like, okay, flame, and he's got his sword and it's gleaming in the previous paragraph. So, and he's wielding it at the moment, right? So I was under the vague impression that wielder of the flame of honor meant it was what he was talking about his sword. Yeah. But it's the things, you know, Jackie was saying that her husband got annoyed by this passage because Gandalf says these things and he doesn't have any idea what Gandalf is referring to, right? And, you know, that's a particular taste. There are some people who really don't like that sort of thing. Speaking of that sort of thing, a book I just finished rereading last night, which I haven't read in like a decade, and it was so much fun to reread, was Lord Dunsany's Book of Wonder, a collection of short stories from 1912, I believe, deeply influential in the earliest, the sort of the early days of fantasy literature. You know, like, I think, so Jackie, it sounds like you would like the Book of Wonder and your husband would not, right? Because like the Book of Wonder is like 75% of it is references to things that are never explained, right? Like just like really impressive sounding names of things that just kind of roll off and you're like, whoa, okay, right? It's like, it's the stories in the Book of Wonder are like 80% mythic appeal and like 20% plot or like our actual narrative, you know? Yes. Oh man, Eric, I don't know any writer of short stories who was better at opening sentences and closing sentences of stories than Lord Dunsany. Eric was just quoting, and he is falling from us still through the unreverberate blackness of the abyss. That's the last sentence of one of his stories. The first line of one of his stories is, the Ghibellines eat, as is well known, nothing less good than man. Such a good first line. Oh my goodness. And the titles of his stories are a feast unto themselves. Anyway. So yeah, Lord Dunsany. Exactly this kind of thing, right? And that's, I think, what Tolkien is doing here. Why did he put this stuff in with no notes, right? For those poor people in 1954 who had no guide at all to it. And the answer is he was doing the Lord Dunsany thing. This has mythic reverb, but it's not meant to convey fact. It's not meant to convey information. When Gandalf says, I am a servant of the secret fire, he's not explaining anything to us. That's not the point of it. He's invoking an idea. The secret fire. Wielder of the flame of honor. Whatever that is. It is, that sounds awesome. And that is really the point. Yes, as McBombarog says, heirs of ancient mystery is a perfectly valid justification for unaccounted for nouns. Yes, yes, agreed. Yeah, yeah. Yes, Ambrosius Balragiana says it's validating to know that Tolkien might put something in just for the rule of cool. Yeah, I think so. I think so, in a sense. Yes, Aradas, I agree with you. Maybe he was hoping that his editor would say, I don't understand how's anyone supposed to understand these references? And then he'd be like, all you have to do is publish this Silmarillion I've got right here, and then there will be no further mysteries. I'm so glad you brought that up. Yeah, exactly. He was baiting his editors. Yeah. And Captain Mo, so I agree. It is, if you don't explain it, it's up to the reader to imagine what power Gandalf has. And that's, again, I didn't understand Wielder of the Flame of Honor, but I was like, Gandalf must be awesome, right? Yeah. Yes. And yes, Kurtzimus, I was getting, we've got the same problem with his sentence about the Balrog. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun. Of what? Now, this one is particularly funny, right? Because we only have one clue by which we can possibly understand in 1954 what the flame of Udun is. And maybe not even in 1954 yet. But there's a map of Mordor. And the map of Mordor, right, in 1955, you will see that there's a region in Mordor, just inside the Black Gate, that is called Udun. I remember finding that when I was a kid. And I was like, oh, that's what Gandalf was talking about. And I was really, really happy for a very brief time until I came back to the passage, thought it through, and was like, okay, actually, that doesn't make any sense at all. Is that his home? Is that his neighborhood? Is that where he's from? Like the northwest corner of Mordor? No, that can't be it, right? Anyways, right. Tuju's man says he was doxing the Balrog. Yeah. That's what I thought. And I was like, yeah, anyway, yeah. I was like, no. And of course, Kurtzimus, yes, the truth, of course, is that corner of Mordor is named after the place that Gandalf is alluding to here. But again, no context, right? No hint of, in fact, the only context we get is completely misleading. Actually, yeah. So that one is particularly fun. Flame of Udun. By the way, like, there isn't even that phrase, Flame of Udun, doesn't even necessarily suggest that Udun is a place. I mean, if he's the Flame of Udun and Gandalf is the wielder of the Flame of Honor, does that mean that Gandalf's from the sun? No. Right? It's not a street address thing, right? Gandalf is the wielder of some awesome power called the Flame of Honor, and the Balrog, who apparently wields dark fire, right? Yes, Gilnar Udun says, who is Udun? Right? So it's Udun's flame. Well, when did Udun give it to him? Right? Should he give it back to Udun? Is Udun gonna come looking for it? Yeah. No, again, anybody's guess as to what this means. Tom, I like your suggestion that by not capitalizing Dark Fire, Gandalf is dissing him by leaving off the capital letters. But it is interesting that neither Dark Fire nor either Flame are capitalized. Flame of Honor is a thing, except it's not like exactly a thing. It's not a proper noun. Flame of Udun is not. If Flame of Arnor is not a proper noun, Flame of Udun is not a proper noun. Apparently. Shadow is capitalized, Bricktails. Yes. And I remember for sure thinking when I was a kid that this must mean that the Balrog was from Mordor. Obviously. Being that that's where the shadows lie. QED. And then I found Udun on the map of Mordor and was like, nailed it. Right, I remember. Ugh. And then again, I was super excited until I realized it didn't make any sense. Yes. I think you are exactly correct. Asphalot's bells. That we don't have to be. Such is Tolkien's phonoaesthetic sense that we don't have to remember Anor or have any clue about Udun to be able to tell the difference between how those words feel. Anor and Udun. Right? Just like, again, like you don't have to understand the Black Speech to hear Gandalf speaking in the Black Speech and want to wince like Elrond. It's ugly. It's threatening sounding. Thrakashaluch. Right? And yes, Dune like doom. Yes. Especially with the, with the circumflex on it, right? Yes. And Klingon. Yes, absolutely. Klingon designed for a similar kind of effect. Sound harsh and threatening. Yeah. Go back to the shadow. Hang on, but I don't want to skip Dark Fire. Dark Fire is a fascinating concept. I think that was my favorite thing of this entire paragraph when I was a kid. The dark fire will not avail you, flame of Udun. The Balrog's fire had not been dark. That is, that didn't seem literal. Because we'd seen, there's fire. There's fire in the Devilry chasm, right? And then he leaps over it and the flames leap up and wreathe around him and his mane catches fire and he's streaming fire behind him. It's perfectly visible, bright fire. It is not a fire of dark, is not yet a fire of darkness. But still, the concept of dark fire. And what it always suggested to me, again, it doesn't suggest a literalness, like fire that emits darkness instead of light. Conceptually, you can kind of think about it that way. And again, that's a very intriguing way to think about it. But again, that's not what we've seen from the Balrog's fire. We've seen normal looking fire. I mean, not normal acting fire, perhaps. The whole wreathing around and thing is a little bit, he seems to have a special relationship with the fire, which is not altogether normal. But still, the fire itself appears normal and not particularly dark. But what it does seem to suggest is evil, like its purpose. It is dark fire because of how he's using it, right? And this seems especially important after the two things he says about himself are fire related. I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of honor. The dark fire, as contrasted with the fire that I'm associated with. The dark fire is not going to avail you, flame of Odun. The fire has been one of the most visible elements. The fire and the shadow. Those are the two things that we can see clearly about the Balrog. And its whip. And its nostrils. But even the nostrils were kind of subsidiary to the fire, right? Yeah. And the dark fire will not avail you, flame of Odun. He doesn't just say, like, I'm not afraid of your fire. He says, you're doing fire wrong. Right? I'm servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of honor. Here's my fire-related resume, right? And I'm here to tell you, this dark fire thing you've got going on, this will not work. It will not avail you, flame of Odun. Which is a shame on account of you're identified with fire also. So your dark fire isn't going to work. And I love the, talk about hero speak, right? The dark fire will not avail you. That's not a normal way of talking, but you don't want Gandalf to talk quite normally. You cannot pass is normal enough, right? Right? Orange Wizard says, that's not a fire. This is a fire. Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Yeah. Go back to the shadow. Sounds more insulting in the context of all of this fire business. I'm the wielder of fire. I'm the servant of fire. You've got dark fire that is not working for you, and you're also associated with fire. Why don't you go back to the shadow, right? Just give up the whole fire business, right? Maybe you should retire from the fire business, right? Go back to the shadow. When it comes to fire, you've got nothing, right? Yeah, flame wielder, stop playing like you're light. Yes. Yes, Kurtzimus, the dark fire is an empty copy of the flame of the sun. Yes. Now, the beautiful thing about this passage, and this is what do you remember in the sorry, this is a really dorky thing to ask. Do you remember about if you've read the Book of Lost Tales? Do you remember in the preface of the Book of Lost Tales, we talked about this in the Mythgard Academy, when Christopher Tolkien is giving his initial sort of rationale and explanation for what he's doing in the Book of Lost Tales, and he's talking about the risks, like the risk of revealing what lies behind things. And he talks about the perception of depth that the stories have. And there's like the concern about publishing the Silmarillion, right? And then about doing the history of Middle-earth, that if you actually show everything, that it'll ruin the mystery, right? That it'll kind of flatten and remove much of the effect of Tolkien's stories, right? That it will reduce its impact if you actually just straight up explain like what the secret fire is, for instance, and where Udun actually is. that Gandalf is alluding to. That the charm that it has, the mythic power that it has, by being something that we don't recognize, will get lost. But here's the really cool thing, I think. And this is where I think Tolkien shows his really remarkable genius. And that is that it works both ways, right? When you don't understand any of the references, my apologies to your husband, Jackie, it's cool. When you get the references, it's even cooler, actually, right? Deep cut, flame of honor. What's the flame of the sun? Who's the flame of the sun? Who's the flame of the sun? Yeah, light of the trees, but I don't even want to go to the trees. Aryan. Who's Aryan? Who drives the sun? Aryan, who is she? Aryan is a spirit of fire who did not fall and follow Morgoth. Right? Unlike, I don't know, this guy, right? The Balrogs are spirits of fire who fell and served Morgoth. Yes, exactly, Andrew Perth. The flame of honor, the sun, Aryan, the spirit of the sun, is the Balrogs as they should have been. Yes, exactly. And so he is, well, throwing shade at the Balrog. It's a sore point, the flame of honor. And remember, Aryan, Morgoth himself is afraid of Aryan. Yes, it's about the light of the trees too. I'm not trying to minimize the importance of the fruit of Laurelin in the sun. And it is the fruit of the fruit of Laurelin that makes the sun shine. It's not just the power of Aryan that we're seeing. But yes, Morgoth is afraid of the light of the eyes of Aryan, the spirit of fire, who drives the sun, who drives the chariot of Honor. So actually, it works all the way down, right? The more you know from Tolkien's Legendarium, the cooler it gets, in fact, right? When you can see this kind of smackdown that Gandalf is doing, right, against the Balrog. It is so cool that it works on every level like that. And of course, the secret fire. And the secret fire, of course, is, well, it's interesting. Secret fire is not even a way in which they talk about it in the Silmarillion exactly. In the Silmarillion, we get the flame imperishable, which Ilúvatar, it is with Ilúvatar, and he places it at the center of Ea when he creates it. It seems to be associated, the imperishable flame seems to be associated with the power, God's power of creation. It is the imperishable flame that Melkor was seeking after, was lusting for and searching for when he was out in the abyss. So when Gandalf says, I'm a servant of the secret fire, even it's not only that he is referring to something that nobody has access to because the Silmarillion isn't published yet. But even with the published Silmarillion, he's speaking, it's still a circumlocution. Even to lore masters, it's a circumlocution. Secret in the sense of hidden. in the sense of restricted access aspect. Yes, in some ways. Um, and it is, I saw someone earlier on talking about how there would seem to be some kind of association between the flame imperishable / secret fire and the Holy Spirit. Generally, yes, I'm always a little cautious about things like this. That's a little bit more allegorical than I think Tolkien was exactly thinking. I'm not opposing the idea. I'm always a little cautious drawing equal signs between, like, Iluvatar equals God. I'm fairly comfortable with that one. But like beyond that, the equal signs get kind of fuzzy. And one has to be careful. So yes, but Almaria, I agree. When we know the lore, right? So as you can tell, I was looking at it from one perspective, which was the 1954 perspective, and the second perspective is the post, 1977 perspective, when we have the published Silmarillion, or even, the post. When was the Peoples? I've got the Peoples of Middle Earth sitting right here. When was this published? 1996, post 1996 reading, in which we have the entire history of Middle Earth at our disposal as well. Yeah, so there's all of that stuff too. But anyway, I agree. From that perspective, Almaria, what we can see him saying is that he's a servant to the one who wields the power of creation, unlike the Balrog, who's a servant of the one who can at best copy that. Exactly, Almaria. It's a way of saying, you call that a fire? That's not a fire, right? That's not a real fire. Your faux fire is pathetic, right? This is what real power, the power of creation, is, the flame. Eru. Is this synecdoche out of reverence, or is there a difference? I think it's synecdoche out of reverence. I think it's a circumlocution on his part. I think that Gandalf means, like, if you're trying to, like, do a translation, when Gandalf says, I'm a servant of the secret fire, I think he's saying, I'm a servant of Iluvatar. I serve God. He's showing where he comes from. He's showing where his power comes from. That's for Thoughtless says, my dad's stronger than your dad. Yeah, something like that. But and I do believe this to be a circumlocution out of reverence. Josh, I'm not 100% sure what amount of the reverence is Gandalf's and what is Tolkien's. Yes, Cunctator, I think that is the flame that he's talking about, the secret fire. The flame that Melkor was seeking in the void but not finding, since it is with Eru. Which is one of the ways in which it's very sort of Holy Spirit-like. The other way in which it's very Spirit-like is when God speaks, when Iluvatar speaks the world into being, he says, Ea, right? He places the secret fire at the heart of the world, right? Like his breath, his spirit going forth and such. Anyway, it's similar, right? Gandalf does seem very shy about naming Iluvatar. Remember, this is Mr. I can put it no plainer than to say, that some other power was at work there. Right? No plainer, Gandalf. Not possible to put it plainer than that. Apparently not. That's not how Gandalf rolls. Yes, as Orange Wizard says, I can put it no plainer than that. It is fire and it is secret. Okay, right. Yes, exactly, exactly. Um, so yeah, that's clearly what Gandalf is getting at. And armed with the Silmarillion, we can kind of figure that out. But it takes figuring even if you know the Silmarillion. He's not just making an allusion to an explicit text in the Silmarillion, even here. Flame of Udun. Udun, of course, was the old stronghold of Melkor, Utumno. So Flame of Udun, meaning like that's where he, you know, it is the place to which he was relegated after he fell, right? Go back to the shadow. We're coming. It's getting super late, I know. But a thought or two on you. I'll go back to the shadow. He is, by capitalizing shadow, I agree. Several people have pointed out that it is very conspicuous, especially given all of the non-capitalized things. Secret fire is a proper noun. Like that's a person or place, right? That's something very specific. Honor and Udun are proper nouns. Dark fire is not a proper noun. Flame of honor, flame of Udun as phrases, not proper nouns. Shadow is. Go back to the shadow. Is that a place? Is that a person? Is that a thing? It could be any one of those things, right? Is he casting him out into the darkness? Is he telling him to go back to his master? Is he telling him to go back to Udun where he came from? All of the above? Perhaps. The shadow. Notice that this is a recurring pattern. Look at what Gandalf says to the Balrog here. Look at what Gandalf says to the Witch King in the Gates of Minas Tirith. Look at what Tom Bombadil sings to the Barrow-wight. And there's a trend, right? There's a trend. And go back to the shadow is the trend. And in a sense to Old Man Willow. Yeah. Yeah. None of them are being destroyed. None of those dark creatures to whom the good powers are giving threatening commands. None of them are threatened with destruction. They're told to go home. There is a place. There is darkness. And that's where they're from. And that's where they belong. And that's where they're going to go. And as evidenced from the reaction of the Barrow-wight, for instance, and from the reaction of the Witch King, not from Gandalf, but from Éowyn, they don't like it much. To be driven or sent back to the shadow doesn't seem like a great thing. I don't think... Now, it is interesting here. I mean here, not just in this passage, but in Moria, right? The Black Pit, which is pretty shadowy. And this is Durin's Bane he's talking to, right? He owns this joint now, has for quite some time, right? Been here 1,000 years. Well, been running this joint for 1,000 years, or at least messing it up for 1,000 years. And yes, Bricktails, you are absolutely correct. Jesus doesn't destroy the demons that he casts out of demoniacs either. What the demons are afraid of is being cast into the abyss, which, of course, is what happens to Satan and his angels in Revelation as well. So yes, there is a biblical precedent to that kind of thing. Yes. Carson, there is a lake of fire. I wasn't even going to go there under the circumstances, but yes. By the way, dark fire, Tolkien doesn't do it, but Milton does. If you've ever read Paradise Lost, you will have read Milton's splendid description of dark fire, of fire that burns but gives off darkness instead of light. So good. So good. Again, really, really cool image. Tolkien doesn't do it visually. Like, he doesn't make it a visual image, I think. But, yeah. Anyway, yeah. Nerdosapiens, when you do read Paradise Lost aloud, read at least book one of it aloud. Like, when you do read it again, read it aloud. I'm telling you, Milton, preferably if you can find a microphone with reverb, like, you barely even need it with Milton, but holy cow. Milton's poetry is ravishing. Read it aloud yourself if you can. Feeling Milton's words in your mouth it's an amazing experience. It really is. You can taste Milton's poetry. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Yeah, Bjorning it's totally uncomfortable. I'm not sorry. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Big picture. Gandalf's confidence, you cannot pass, is clearly not in his own power. He identifies himself in relationship to the higher powers, the secret fire, even the flame of honor, even the flame of the sun is, of course, literally higher than he is. But still, like, it's these greater powers, these greater fires, against which the dark fire will not avail. The flame of shadows. Go back to the shadow. You cannot pass. It can't happen. He lacks the ability or power to pass Gandalf. Remember, what makes Gandalf so confident? It is not because. It is tempting to say because he knows the authority from which he speaks, and that he is trusting in the power of Iluvatar and the power of the secret fire to back him up. But I don't think so. Because it's not gonna. That is, he says go back to the shadow, but the Balrog doesn't do it. Like when Tom Bombadil says to go back to the shadow to the Barrow-wight, it does. But Gandalf's authority, either his own authority or his delegated authority, neither one of them is sufficient for him to actually compel the Balrog to actually compel the Balrog to go back to the shadow. Why can't he pass? Because Gandalf's not going to let him. Gandalf knows what he's going to do. Gandalf knows. Gandalf has a plan. And remember, Gandalf has been suspecting that he is going to have to sacrifice himself for some time now. And I think that Aragorn and Boromir are there at the foot of the bridge because they know it too. And they are wanting to try to find a loophole. He cannot stand alone against this thing. But they can't do anything. And Gandalf doesn't mean that he should. And yes, exactly. Gandalf sacrificing himself is why he knows the Balrog cannot pass. Because he, Gandalf, is not going to let it... It's not going to happen. Yes, Dr. Benway, exactly. Both Gandalf, or sorry, both Aragorn and Boromir understand sort of the military situation. Yeah. Well, there's more to say about this. I talked about two ways of reading this passage. The 1954 way of reading this passage, the post-1996 way of reading this passage. But I didn't talk about the third way. Well, it's hard because we don't really know the third way. The third way is the Frodo way. Not knowing what we knew in 1954, not knowing what we know after 1996, but knowing what Frodo knows. What is Frodo hearing when he hears Gandalf here? But that's hard because we don't know exactly what Frodo... Like, has Frodo ever heard the Ainulindalë? Like, did Bilbo know that? Like, is it... How much lore exactly has Frodo heard from Bilbo? It's hard to tell. We can be much more confident about what Eleanor Gamgee or Eleanor Gardner knows, because Sam will have Bilbo's translations from the Elvish, which I feel confident includes the Ainulindalë. But yeah, I don't think that Frodo can possibly get everything that's going on here. I bet Aragorn gets a bunch of it. He probably gets Flame of Anor and Flame of Udun. I bet you he knows about Udun. But again, even Servant of the Secret Fight, even that's a circumlocution. And even people who know the Ainulindalë aren't going to necessarily, go straight for that. Right. Amaray says Legolas is still screaming somewhere, so he's not getting this at all. Yeah. And Flame Wielder, it happens so quickly in the book. It really does. Yeah. Okay. We're gonna return next week. Of course, I want to focus on the second paragraph next time. However, let me make an apology. I've gone this entire discussion without even once alluding to the Ring of Power that Gandalf is wielding. And I know that several of you are burning to talk about that. So we'll talk about that next time. I'm not going to dodge it forever. I was dodging it on purpose for good reasons. And I think you know the reasons why, but I'll talk about them again next week anyway. But we'll talk about the Ring of Fire, which Gandalf is wielding, in fact, next time. But so we'll start with that, and then we'll move into the second paragraph, to the non-answer of the Balrog here, and move forward. All right. I know, Kingsfoil, I know you really want to talk about the Ring of Fire. Lots of people really want to talk about the Ring of Fire here, but we'll get there. I have saved it for last. We can think of it that way, perhaps. But yeah. Next time. Now, tonight, thank you all for joining us. For those of you who could only stay for the book discussion, thanks very much. But tonight, I want to go on a special field trip tonight to celebrate our anniversary and our getting to the Bridge of Khazad-dum passage. I want to go through the second hall of Moria and go to the chasm and the bridge. I've been waiting. We're still going to wait to fully explore that area until we finish the chapter, but I want to finish our current field trip. But I want to. This is our big central Bridge of Khazad-dum session, right? Talking about Gandalf's speech. So I want to. I definitely want to do our special field trip looking at the Bridge of Khazad-dum. All right, awesome. Thanks everybody. So let me switch over. I gotta hang on a second. Okay, and Valori, you are back tonight.
Yeah, I'm back.
Just in the nick of time.
What an episode! Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah. I was just rooted the whole thing this time.
Oh man, this been so. I've been looking forward to this passage for years.
No, me too. I'm so glad we got to this.
Yes.
I'm glad I got to share this moment with everybody.
Yes.
But I feel like we're definitely feeling this through Frodo's first pass eyes. Like he's panicking, he's got stress overload, he's hearing this stuff. He doesn't know, he gets some of the Elvish words, but like he might not know what it means or any context behind it. This is Tolkien really like digging into that pre-teenage audience of just, we don't need to know what the secret fire or the sacred flame is. We just know it sounds awesome.
Yeah. No, I mean, that almost has to be the first reaction, right? I mean, like, I really doubt. No, because it's not, as I said, it's not even that, like, if you did remember the word honor and that it meant son, which again, like what percentage of people will remember that on a first reading? Like 0.02%?
No, I was 12. I fell asleep for most of the Council of Elrond.
Right. Especially there, that it's sort of the digging.
I'm pretty sure I kept reading the same phrase over and over again and then just sort of blipped over the rest. I maybe got 5-10% of it.
Yes. Yep, exactly. Anyway, so like I said, but even if you do get it, even if you do remember that, like it doesn't even help. Like what exactly is the flame of honor? Yeah.
But it doesn't matter because the only thing we're focusing on is whatever he said. He could have said it in Elvish and Quenya. He could have said it in like the speech of the gods. The point we're seeing is the Balrog stopping and the orcs looking terrified.
Yep.
And that is what makes the impact of what he's saying. I hate to be a broken record on this one, but the Bakshi movie, once again, a beautiful radio play. The Bakshi movie. Like, William Squire got it right. He sang it calm and direct, like a hypnotist convincing him of this is your reality. But in casting the spell, I'm reminded of, once again, Tolkien drawing on the Kalevala for the magic. What he's doing is he's telling the story of himself. He's telling the story of the Balrog, and then he tells the story of what will happen next. That is how magic works in the Kalevala. You sing it into being by knowing its history and what to do next.
Exactly. Okay, so where we're going? So my milestone is set for the rotting cellar. So let's start there, and we can stable master from there.
Yeah, I think Druid said they could summon me to the rotting cellar.
Awesome. Yes. And thank you, Druid's Fire, for being here. It was so good. Druid's Fire has been subbing in for you while you've been gone, and it's been awesome. So appreciate whenever Druid's Fire can jump in. Okay, all right. So we're in Moria here now. There's a stable master right over there. So where I want to go is to that one that we were at before. Where
Greetings,
is it?
friend. Are you lost?
Is it?
There's my invite.
Durin's Threshold?
No, that's the way to begin Moria.
Oh yeah, that's way at the start. Okay, so if we go to... Man, we can't even get to the 21st hall from here.
You can't? Hold on.
Wow, no, we can. Okay, let's...
Oh, Dolven View.
yeah, no,
Someone's
we can't
saying
get...
Dolven
Yeah,
View.
we can... Oh, I can get there. Painfully. My... Oh, that's right. Where's the deep descent?
That's just south
Oh.
of the Dolven View.
Just south of the Dolphin View? Okay. All right, let's go back to the Dolphin View. Yeah, it's the Stable Master reset is kind of thwarting me. But let's go through the Dolphin View, and we can get back to there from there.
Might have
The
some
Eastern
mythical
Crossroad.
coins.
That's the one I'm looking for, Belnos. That's exactly it. Okay.
Okay, Dolven View. We're going to
Dolphin View. We're going to Dolphin View, and then from here we can Stable Master to the 21st
May Dorian
hall.
return soon to his
All
heart.
right. Man, I want to talk some more about the passage. I had like a page of notes, but I'll leave it for later.
Yeah, no, we can definitely talk about it.
Just a couple of things. I'm a little sad the song wasn't brought up in the Invic, because that would have been cool. I always feel like he started on this really cool musical note, and then just I kind of left off on that. Like I don't know where he
The time has
invented the
come to
song, but
drive
I always
forth the
felt like
orcs
there
from
should
our
have been more
kingdom.
music brought in. I mean, we have a lot of songs, but we
Mhm.
never have them at like magical moments. Just like really mostly tragic moments or a few moments
Yeah,
of
no,
levity.
it's true. Like, it would be interesting. Like, it would have been really interesting, and one would think appropriate for Gandalf to bust into song here.
Yeah, or have a cantele or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, here we are at the Eastern Crossroads in Zelam Melek. This is just where I wanted to be.
I'm still waiting to use the Stable Master. There we go. Eastern Crossroads. No, you're not the. I need the other guy. No, I don't want to go to Minas Tirith. Who has the time man?
Yes, that is a little out of the way.
Just a bit.
Yeah, and there are the two Stable Masters in 21st Hall, so you do have to make sure you talk to the right
Yes.
one. All right. Okay. So we peeked out of here before, but if I recall, we get through to Nud Melek. We've got to go. Which way is it? It's the other way, right? Yeah, it's the other way. Okay, we're gonna go up and to the left. I got turned around by when I landed from the Stable Master. Okay, here we go.
When in doubt, head east. That's where all the interesting and horrible things are.
Exactly. Okay, so here we are headed
It's
east,
full of fun.
and we peeked out and we're looking at the stairs and the way down just when we were in this part of Moria before. But now that we have read the relevant passages, we can already see there in front of us. This is the second hall, so we can already see in front of us the branching tree branches, right? Like the
columns carved
columns
to
that
look
are
like
carved like
trees.
trees, and the branches that go up across the ceiling. So we're seeing them from up above. And
Yeah.
I think we are currently approaching the second hall from the way that the orcs and the Balrog came.
Okay.
Because so there's
Jumping out in the wings here.
yeah, they come out. So we're going to come out at the end of the hall, which is where the large quantity of orcs and and then the shadow came. And we're still. This is such.
I meant the wings of the theater. Don't come at me, guys.
Okay. All right. This is the most indirect, convoluted set of stairs. Okay. And now
They definitely make you own it.
we are
Whoa,
approaching.
steep too.
Yes, they are steep. We are approaching ground floor level.
It is impossible to look dignified when going down steep stairs.
Okay. There we go.
Like, if this was the elf room, that was on purpose.
Okay, so these are now we see the columns carven like trees. And I like how, so they've integrated two of their sort of habitual decorating motifs, right? That is to say, we've got the dwarf statues along the walls, and we've got the crystals, right? And I like how the crystals are hanging down almost like fruit hanging from the branches.
Or like the ends of a fir or something like that.
Yeah.
Like a coniferous tree.
Yes.
Or a cluster of leaves like a weeping willow. It's a bit ominous, though. I wonder if it was like a little more cheerfully lit at the time, or if this is it, and it rather gives you your opinion, like it shows you what the dwarves' opinion of forests is.
Yeah, the sickly green is kind of interesting as a decorating choice. And yeah, I don't know, are these winding down? You know, did this, as you say, did this used to be brighter? I don't really know for sure, but
do elves have dark vision in this world?
I don't. Well, so I've never understood why there's water in here.
I think it's part of the flooding. Because I recall, like in some of the lower areas, there was some significant flooding after the Watcher pool got blocked up.
I wonder, Emma Thorne, if it's if the greenish color is meant to invoke the green of trees and tree leaves in here.
Yes. I mean, if you squint, it's kind of springy looking. It's just against a very dark background.
And it is interesting because, of course, I mean, like, look, if you've got some green light crystals, and this is the color of the green crystals, so like, you know, it's not exactly leaf green, but you know, it's evoking greenness in any case.
Yeah. It's a forest made by someone who's probably never seen a forest.
Yes.
I wonder if Celebrimbor was on any of the advisory, like the architectural phase, or if they like surprised him and said, "Look what we did for you."
Yeah, well, it's interesting. This isn't even on the Holland side, right? Yeah. Arnos, you're right. Sorry, Arnos is just making a really interesting observation. The floor design is clearly intentional. That is, these recessions in the floor, like these are not just like potholes. This is not like a big old puddle, an incidental puddle. This is designed, and not only do you see the floor sloped that way on purpose, but what are now pools are symmetrical. Like they're the same shape, right? So it's
you almost feel like they were going for an organic feel in the floor as well.
Yeah, they're not making it so it's not just a flat level floor. Now I wonder what happened to the chasm. They seem, because this is the hall where the fiery chasm was crossing. And I remember I admit that I think we're going to get towards. Didn't they make it huge, the chasm?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they did. They made it unjumpable for people who are. They made it one of the first things you could get to, but they made it uncrossable.
Mm-hmm.
So many a first-time player has fallen to their death several times,
right,
attempting to jump over the bridge.
So so the second hall. Oh yeah, see, look, here's a dried up version of one of those pools.
Mm-hmm.
And the floor here suggests to me that this used to. I think the water is intentional.
Oh.
I think the water is intentional. I think they did mean these to be pools. I don't know why, but I can see why it didn't come into the explanation in the book, because this is a lot of devilry.
Yeah.
And they did choose just to put lava at the bottom of it. here.
Yeah, it looks like maybe
Um,
it retains water better.
right. Well, I
I
mean,
don't know what
as to
the
say, like in the book, it's clearly not just lava. Like there's fire, and again,
yeah.
it's not just, oh, an inconvenient chasm has opened up here. Um,
Yeah.
it's it's a devilry, right? I mean, it's
It's
something
a legion of devilry.
magical. Yeah, exactly. Now, Neurosapiens is asking what level we're at. We're at ground level outside, which is to say we're in the middle. There's a lot higher up in the mountains. There's a lot lower down. Yeah, Asphalt's bells, that seems logical to me. So caves would naturally have a lot of water seeping in. Dwarves would have had to deal with that, and this looks like a detention pond designed to be aesthetic, like a lake feature in a mall.
Yeah,
Yeah,
perhaps it wasn't quite so egregious, though. Maybe it was just an absorbent stone floor to absorb any drippage.
yeah.
But the recent flooding, and in game, it's a recent flooding since the Watcher moved downstairs. We're seeing the aftermath of the company going through and the Watcher moving from his home.
Yeah. So all right. So on the one hand, this would seem to be another example of the Lotro people doing what they always do, which is to make things bigger. Scale is a big issue in the game, right?
Yes.
Because
Very.
everything is squished down to be small so that you can travel fast, so that it doesn't actually take you a month to, walk across the landscape and get from one place to another. So by making it possible for you to run, I mean, I forget, somebody did this calculation, right, using some of the measurements that Tolkien gives on his map, and then timing how long it takes you to run from one point to another that Tolkien measures in miles in the book. And if you calculate the speed that, your Lotro character is running at like Mach 2. But anyway, like, so that's a choice they have to make. Like, they can't make the world realistically scaled.
No.
However,
No, Moria, pretty close.
Right. However, they also then don't want to. So if everything is smaller, they can't make the features of the landscape equally smaller, or else everything that's supposed to be like impressive is going to be looking tiny, right? So here, if this were just a fissure in the floor, which our characters could jump across or almost jump across, then it wouldn't convey like we are cut off by this thing. If it just looked like a crack in the floor that's like 3 feet across, it wouldn't have the impact that this is sort of meant to have.
There's other practical reasons as well, because it behooves the developers to come up with segregated areas that are different levels and
Of
have different
course.
quests.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. There are
So
lots of other reasons that drive their
two birds.
geography choices. But yeah, so let's go around, because
Pretty
over here they put in so we still haven't gotten to the point where the company comes out in the second hall yet, because they came out on the other side of the fissure. So we got to cross the fissure, and the dwarves and or orcs have erected this convenient bridge by which we can cross the fissure. Again, I totally sympathize with the impulse that the developers have to make things that we're told are impressive or awe-inspiring or even creepy in the book, to make them impressive. And they do this in large part by making them bigger. And so again, I sympathize with that. However, it cannot be denied that this gets them into certain problems, right? Like, for instance, this chasm, like, no troll is going to lay a slab of stone down to enable them to cross that chasm. It's way too big, right? So that element of the story is kind of rendered impossible, just as the Stone of Erech is so big you can't really bring it in a ship, in a sailing ship across the ocean. I think this is where the company came. Because it should be in this wall. They should have come out into the second hall from this direction, looking back right down the hall, and then left towards the bridge. So it should be somewhere around here. Right. This goes all the way to the 21st hall. Right. Exactly. So, yeah, I think this is meant to be where the company comes from. So they come running in here. Now, again, everything's kind of bigger and this is sort of an obstructed view, but look at that. We've got the one gallery of tree pillars and then the main gallery of tree pillars there in the center. But if we
I love how the roots curl around the pedestal like that.
Yeah, it's very cool.
They do get organic.
Okay, so here we are on having come out from where the company came out and then looking down the hall across the chasm. And so this would have been where they would have seen the orcs. So like I said, the orcs came down the stairs just like we did. And so the orcs all come boiling out into the hall there at the far end. And that's where they see the Balrog approaching from that direction. And then again, we get a chasm, which is now too wide for them to cross. But they don't leave very much hall. I think it's interesting that they put it so far down. In the second hall here, the chasm is like 80% of the way down the hall. Whereas I got the impression in the book that it was much... yes, Balnos, exactly. The stairs they came down were further west. That's what I think, too. That the chasm was more like in the middle of the hall. Than all the way down this close to the bridge.
I will say for the second hall though, that was one thing that I really did like in the movie, the scale and just the orcs swarming around like cockroaches. It
was fun. There's a lot of things. There are many ways in which the adaptation choices they made in the films worked really, really well.
You just know Christopher Lee was sitting in his trailer going, you cannot pass.
Right.
Completely undermines the entire scene. I would have liked a triplicate, honestly. I would have liked, you shall not pass, you will not pass, you cannot pass. I like rules of three in that sort
Soon you will not have passed. Yes.
You are going to will have not passed.
Yes. Yeah, well, future perfect tense.
Been passed.
Yeah.
This is when we need the Spanish to help us out once again. Only they have the tenses.
So, okay. I don't love the arches and things. I mean, it's interesting. I'm trying to figure out what that was about, but one of the things I don't love about this is that this is where they were standing when they were getting shot at by the orcs. And that would be really challenging. Like, these arches actually offer a substantial, not perfect cover, obviously, but a substantial amount of cover, really. And I think that's when I'm thinking about like, kind of recreating the moment here. They don't seem like necessarily very vulnerable standing here, but this is where they would have been shot at. And then they go across the bridge. And again, like, look, from a gameplay perspective, I'm grateful that the bridge is as wide as it is. But of course, this is hardly a single file bridge, right? Again, everything's bigger in game, and it's one of those places where like you get the trade-off. And I think I can see where they're trapped. I can imagine basically mocking this out, in game design.
Mm-hmm.
And if they had made a span that was genuinely a single file span, it would have looked weird, I think. It would have looked tiny and fragile and out of proportion with everything else that we see here in this huge grand hall. And Emma Thorne, yeah, like, again, I'm grateful as a player because anything actually that narrow, I'm not going to be able to cross. Yeah, the Rivendell bridges are narrow enough, Aranos. But again, the trade-off for having everything grander and bigger and more impressive is that you're losing something that is essential to the whole situation of the Bridge of Khazad-dum. So, yeah.
It strikes me as one of those things where we look at it and go, it's not that narrow. It's pretty wide. But if we were on an actual bridge like this, it would be far too narrow for our liking.
Oh yeah, it would be. Even this would be uncomfortably narrow. But honestly, like, although with great fearfulness, you could drive across this bridge. Like you drive a car across this bridge. Yeah.
Like a warthog.
Right.
Altering guy.
Right. But as I say, it's but nevertheless, as I say, it's a trade-off. It really is a necessary trade-off for that.
Mm-hmm.
But
I don't know. A bridge like this is impressive no matter what size it is, just simply because A, we know the events around it, and B, it falls into nothingness. It is an insta-kill jump.
Yes. Exactly.
I mean, that definitely gets there.
Yep. Well, I do love the vantage from here. The bottomless chasm.
With not nearly enough light near it.
Yes. Yeah. And Bricktails, I was thinking the same thing. I think I think I have to jump off. I think we have to end by
all right, I'm ready when
Professor, one giant leap for the fandom.
Okay, yeah. I think we have to go.
All right, Leroy Jenkins.
There we go, down into the abyss with Gandalf.
Yep.
Okay, now, but I'm not going to retreat. Let's see. Deep is the
How
chasm
far it
spanned by Durin's bridge, and none have measured
Whoa.
it. Oh, there we go. We splashed down. Okay.
That was like an explosion of light. Oh, Pineleaf's still alive. Hey, Pineleaf, res us.
Somebody survived?
I think he just didn't jump.
Oh, yeah, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Josh, yeah, this officially makes us a cult.
Group suicide.
Sorry,
No,
Okay.
we're a collective of like-minded individuals. We're not a cult.
Yeah, see, we chose to jump off. It was not imperative.
Yes. Yeah, it does ask you to retreat, but you don't have to retreat instantly. You can.
I think I'm gonna, because I'm just looking at Gray and it's boring.
Oh, yeah, I don't think we can
All I see
revive.
is Gray.
Yeah, but
No,
Yeah.
there we go.
Yeah.
There
Yep.
we go. Okay. So we have followed Gandalf to, and now we're at the top of the stairs again, right?
Everybody just springing to life.
Yeah. Our punishment is having to go down the stairs again.
And the magical
Okay.
respawn machine.
Yes.
And the metaphysical quandaries therein.
Awesome. Okay, so we will
It's
return.
amazing.
As I say, we're gonna come back. I want to explore the second hall and the first hall a bunch more thoroughly, but uh, yeah. So we'll we'll get here. I want to come up. I want to get up here after we get all the way through. Again, as I said, when we get to the end of the chapter, but I wanted to come and see the bridge on our class of discussing the bridge, and it is super late now, so we'll go. But next time we'll head back to the rotting cellar and continue our examination of the waterworks as we continue to work through the text, and then when we finish it, we'll come back up here and
Nice.
and finish things up. All right, very good. Well,
All right.
thank you everybody for joining me tonight. That was great fun.
This is an amazing homecoming.
Yes.
We yeeted ourselves off the bridge.
Yes.
Happy anniversary, everybody.
Happy anniversary to everybody. Happy New Year. And we will see you guys next week. Bye. Now.